My father didn't come to my graduation. Not because he was sick. Not because he was traveling. He stayed home on purpose, 15 minutes away, in the house I grew up in, and let me walk across that stage alone. I found out through my aunt. She called me the night before, voice low like she was telling me a secret she wasn't supposed to know. "Sweetheart, your father isn't planning to come tomorrow. I just thought you should hear it from someone who loves you." I sat on the edge of my dorm bed for a long time after that. My roommate was out. The room smelled like her vanilla candles and my unwashed scrubs. I had a clinical rotation at 6 the next morning, then the ceremony at 2, and I hadn't slept more than 5 hours in 3 days. I told myself it didn't matter. I was wrong. My father is the chief medical officer of Riverside Health System. 3 hospitals, 2 urgent care networks, something like 4,000 employees. He built that from a single clinic he bought in 1998, and he never let any of us forget it. Growing up, dinner conversation was always about the hospital. Expansion plans, board politics, which attending he was trying to recruit, which administrator he needed to push out. My mother learned to ask the right questions. My older brother learned to look interested. I learned to be quiet and eat fast. When I got into nursing school, my father didn't congratulate me. He said, "That's not what I had in mind for you." What he had in mind was administration, an MBA, then a hospital management program, then a position inside his system where he could watch me, shape me, eventually hand me something. He'd mapped it out before I'd even declared a major. He used to say he was building a legacy. What he meant was he was building a structure, and we were supposed to be the load-bearing walls. I didn't want to be a wall. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be in the room with patients, not in boardrooms with spreadsheets. I tried to explain that to him once, junior year of college. He listened with his arms crossed and then said, "You're romanticizing a support role." Then he left the table and that was the end of the conversation. I got my BSN anyway. I applied to the county hospital's new graduate program 60 miles away from home, got in on my first try, and told my father 2 weeks before graduation. He went completely still when I told him. That particular stillness, I'd learned to fear it as a kid. It meant something was being calculated behind his eyes. "You turned down a position in my system," he said, "for a county job." I didn't turn it down. You never officially offered it. I was going to offer it after you graduated. I know. He looked at me for a long moment. "This is a mistake, Wren." Wren. That's my name. My mother named me after the bird because I was born small and loud, she said. My father never liked the name. He called me by my full name. Renata. Wait, no. He called me by a nickname he invented. Something clipped and efficient. He called me by my last name sometimes, like I was one of his residents. That night, he used my actual name, and somehow that made it worse. Like he was being careful. Like he was disappointed enough to be deliberate. My name is Wren. I was 23 years old, and I had just done the thing I wanted to do. I left his office and drove back to campus and cried for about 40 minutes in a parking garage, and then I washed my face and went to study for my pharmacology final. The morning of graduation, I got up at 5:30, did my clinical rotation, came back, showered, put on my dress under my gown, and called my mom. She didn't answer. I texted her and she sent back a string of hearts, which meant she was somewhere she couldn't talk, which usually meant she was with my father. My aunt came. She sat in the 3rd row with a poster she'd made herself, one of those glittery foam board signs that said, "Wren did it in blue and gold," my school colors. She cried before they even called my name. I saw her from the stage and something cracked open in my chest in the best way. My mother came too, alone, slipping into the seat next to my aunt right as the processional started. We made eye contact when I walked past and she gave me this small, tight smile that I knew meant she was sorry and also that she couldn't say it. My father's chair, the one they'd reserved, stayed empty. I shook the dean's hand. I accepted my diploma. I took a photo I knew I'd never print. After the ceremony, we went to lunch. Me, my aunt, my mom, and my college roommate who'd stuck around because she knew I might need backup. My mom kept checking her phone. My aunt kept filling the silence with stories about her own graduation 30 years ago, something about a broken heel and a wrong turn to the wrong auditorium. I laughed when I was supposed to. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Except she was sitting right across from me. I looked up. She was staring at her own phone, not at me. I looked down at mine. It wasn't from my mom. It was from a number I didn't recognize. No name in my contacts. I know what you have. You need to think very carefully before you do anything with it. I stared at that message for so long that my aunt touched my arm and asked if I was all right. I said yes. I put my phone face down. I wasn't all right. I should back up. 6 weeks before graduation, I was home for spring break. My parents were both at work. My brother was out of state, and I was in the house alone, looking for a charger I'd left in my father's home office over Christmas. My father's office at home is the same as his office at the hospital. Deliberate, organized, nothing out of place. Bookshelves alphabetized, desk completely clear except for one legal pad and one pen. He has a filing cabinet in the corner that he keeps locked. I'd never thought much about it. The cabinet was open that day. I don't know why. Maybe he'd been in a hurry that morning. Maybe he just forgot. I wasn't trying to snoop. I really was just looking for my charger, and it wasn't on his desk. And I glanced around the room, and the cabinet was just sitting there, slightly ajar. I should have left. Instead, I opened it. There were files. Lots of files. They looked like billing records at first. Patient codes, service dates, insurance carriers. I almost closed the drawer. Then I saw the dates. Some of these claims were dated on days the clinic in question had been closed for renovation. I knew that because I'd heard my father mention the renovation schedule at dinner. I'd been half listening, the way you do, but I remembered. I pulled one file out, then another. The numbers didn't make sense. Services billed for patients who, according to other documents in the same folder, had been discharged weeks earlier. Procedures coded at rates that seemed off. I'm a nursing student. I know billing isn't my specialty, but I know what a patient record looks like, and some of these didn't add up. I stood in my father's office for a long time. Then I did something I still don't fully know how to explain. I took out my phone and I photographed every page in those 3 folders. 72 photos total. I put the files back exactly as I'd found them, closed the cabinet to the same angle it had been open, found my charger behind the desk lamp, and walked out of the room. I didn't look at the photos again for 2 weeks. When I did, I sent them to an email address I created on a device my father hadn't given me, using a network he didn't pay for. I don't know why I was that careful. Instinct, maybe. Or maybe some part of me already knew. I also printed copies and put them in a manila envelope that I gave to my aunt before graduation. I told her to hold on to it and not ask questions. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "Are you safe?" I said yes. She said, "Okay." And she put the envelope in her bag, and we didn't talk about it again. The text came from a number that, when I looked it up later, was registered to a prepaid phone. It could have been anyone, but I knew it wasn't anyone. That night, after graduation lunch, I drove to my parents' house. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't, really. I just drove. My father was in the living room. He looked up when I came in like he'd been expecting me. My mother wasn't there. "Congratulations," he said. He didn't stand up. "Thank you for coming," I said. He didn't react to that. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat down. "I want to talk to you about some choices you're making," he said. "I want to talk to you about some numbers I found," I said. The room got very quiet. My father is a big man. Not physically. He's average height, slim, keeps himself in shape. But he fills a room in a way I've never been able to explain. He has a gravity to him. When I was a child, I thought that meant he was important. Later, I thought it meant he was powerful. Sitting across from him that night, I started to think it just meant he was very, very used to being the heaviest thing in the space. "What numbers?" he said. Not a question. "Insurance claims," I said. "Billing records. Procedures coded for discharged patients." Services billed on dates the clinic was closed. He was quiet for a long time. You were in my office. I was looking for my charger. You went through my files. Your cabinet was open. He looked at me with something that wasn't quite anger. It was more like he was recalibrating, like he was measuring something. You don't understand what you're looking at, he said. I understand enough. Billing is complicated. There are legitimate reasons for the coding structures you might have seen. Retrospective adjustments, carrier agreements. Dad, I said it quietly. Stop. He stopped. I looked at my hands for a second, then back at him. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here because I love you, and because I think you need to know that someone else has seen what I saw, and that person is going to keep it safe. Not use it, just keep it safe. As long as no one gives them a reason to. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. I barely recognized myself. What do you want? He asked. His voice had changed. Just slightly. I want to go to my job on Monday, I said. I want to be a nurse. I want to do the thing I went to school for. And I want my family to let me do that in peace. That's all? That's all. I stood up. He didn't. I'd also like you to stop sending texts from prepaid phones, I said. It's not a good look. I drove home. My hands didn't shake until I was back in my apartment, door locked, sitting on my kitchen floor. Then they shook for a while. The job was everything I'd hoped it would be and harder than I'd imagined. County hospital, med-surg floor, 3 12-hour shifts a week that usually turned into 14 hours. I had a charge nurse named Beverly who was either the toughest person I'd ever met or the most compassionate, and somehow both at once. She had a rule. You cry in the supply closet, not at the nurse's station. I used the supply closet 3 times in my first month. She never commented on it. I had a patient in my second week. I'll call her by her room number because that's how we talked about her. Bed 4. Who reminded me why I'd chosen this. She was 71, post-op, from a hip replacement, and she was scared in a way she kept trying to hide. Her daughter couldn't get there until Thursday. She made small talk every time I came in, like she needed to prove she wasn't worried. On my night shift Tuesday, I sat with her for 20 minutes when my other patients were stable. Just sat there. She talked about her garden. She had a raised bed for tomatoes that her late husband had built her. She was worried the neighbors were overwatering it while she was gone. When I got up to leave, she grabbed my hand. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the medical stuff. Just for sitting." I thought about my father's office, about billing codes and carrier adjustments and the 4,000 employees who had no idea. I thought about all the patients whose names were in those files, who never knew they were part of something that had nothing to do with their care. I didn't call a reporter. I didn't call a lawyer. I want to be honest about why. I was scared. I'm still scared. I have an envelope with my aunt, and I have photos on an email account, and that feels like enough of a lever for right now. Maybe that makes me a coward. I've read the comment sections of enough news stories to know that people have opinions about whistleblowers who didn't blow hard enough. But I also know that if anything changes, if something shifts, if someone gets hurt, I know exactly what I'm holding and I know exactly what to do with it. My father has not contacted me since that evening. My mother calls every Sunday and we talk about safe things. The weather, my brother's kids, what I'm cooking. She doesn't ask about the hospital. I don't either. My aunt still has the envelope. She's asked me twice if she should do anything with it. I said not yet. She said okay, and she means it, because she's the kind of person who understands that not yet is sometimes the most honest answer you can give. There's something I keep coming back to. The night before graduation, when my aunt called to tell me my father wasn't coming, she said something at the end of the call. After all the softness and the reassurance and the "you should hear it from someone who loves you," she said, "Whatever he's built, Wren, he didn't build it by himself. You know that, right? None of it happened without people like you deciding to play along." I didn't know what she meant then. I think I do now. My father built something real. Hospitals that serve real people. Clinics in neighborhoods that needed them. That's true. I don't need to make him a cartoon villain to tell this story accurately. He did things that mattered. He also did things that I photographed in 72 images on a Tuesday afternoon in March, and both of those things exist at the same time. What I keep thinking about is the playing along. How long I'd done it. The quiet dinners, the careful answers, the choosing of a major that wouldn't disappoint, then eventually the choosing of nursing school that did. And then the 6 months of his silence after that, while I finished my last year and told myself the distance was manageable. I played along for a long time. I stopped on a Tuesday afternoon in March, in a home office, with a phone camera and 72 pictures. I got my first paycheck from the county hospital 4 weeks after graduation. Direct deposit, $1,847 after taxes, for 80 hours of work plus 2 on-call shifts. I took a screenshot of the deposit notification. I don't know why, it just felt like something I wanted to remember. I'm 24 now. I have a one-bedroom apartment 12 minutes from the hospital. I have a coffee maker that I actually use, and a couch I picked out myself, and a plant named after nobody because it doesn't need to be named after anybody. It's just a plant. It gets watered on Thursdays. My aunt came to visit last month, and I made dinner. Sheet pan chicken, roasted broccoli, the kind of meal that's not impressive but tastes like something. We ate on the couch because I don't have a table yet, and she asked me how I was really doing, and I told her the truth. I said, I'm tired, and I'm good. And I'm not sure those two things are supposed to coexist, but they do. She said that sounded exactly right. I thought about asking her if she still had the envelope. I didn't. I already know she does. Some nights I think about calling my father. Not to threaten him, not to confront him, just to, I don't know, to hear what he sounds like now, to find out if anything shifted in him the way something shifted in me. I don't call, but I think about it. My brother emailed me last week. First contact in 8 months. He said he heard I was settling in well. He said maybe we could grab coffee sometime when I'm in the area. I wrote back and said, sure, I'd like that. I haven't heard anything since. These things take time. That's what I keep telling myself. I know what I have. I know where I put it. I know who's holding it. And I know the way you know a thing in your body before your brain has words for it, that I'm not the same person who sat on that stage alone and smiled for a photo she'd never print. She got out of that chair. She photographed 72 pages. She drove 60 miles away, and she showed up on Monday. That's the whole story. That's what it cost. And on most days, not all of them, but most, I think it was worth it. I've thought a lot about the filing cabinet. Not the files themselves, though I think about those too, but the fact that it was open. That it was just sitting there, slightly ajar, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in March, when I was looking for a phone charger. I didn't go in that office looking for anything except something that belonged to me. And then I found something that belonged to a much larger conversation. That's how cause and effect actually works, I think. Not dramatically. Not with music swelling in the background. It's a cabinet left open. It's a daughter who's been taught her whole life to pay attention, because paying attention was the only way to stay safe in a house where one person controlled the weather. The attention my father trained into me, the vigilance, the reading of rooms, the noticing of small details, turned out to be the very thing that let me see what he hadn't meant for me to see. He built that in me. Then it worked against him. That's not irony. That's just what happens when you raise a person to be observant and then assume the observing will always serve you. I didn't become a nurse by accident. I chose it because I wanted to be present with people in the hardest moments of their lives, not managing systems from a distance. Bed 4, the woman worried about her tomato garden. She didn't need an administrator. She needed someone to sit down. To stay. I sat down. I stayed. That's the whole job sometimes. And my father never understood why I'd want that job, because he'd spent 30 years learning to see people as units in a system rather than individuals in a room. What I keep coming back to is this. The choices that cost us the most in the short term are often the ones that give us back the most of ourselves. Leaving his system cost me his approval. which I'd been trying to earn for 23 years without ever quite getting there. Going 60 miles away cost me proximity to a family I was already in some ways estranged from. Photographing those files cost me my innocence about who my father is. But I have my paycheck. I have my apartment. I have Beverly telling me to cry in the supply closet and not at the nurse's station, which is the most honest management advice I've ever received. I have the clarity of knowing that what I do every day is the thing I actually chose, not the thing that was chosen for me. Wren chose. That's the sentence I come back to when the nights are hard. My father has his hospitals. He has his legacy, whatever form it takes now. And I have 72 photographs on an email account and an aunt who asks me, "Are you safe?" before she asks me anything else. The courage wasn't the big moment, standing in that living room saying what I said. The courage was quieter than that. It was going to nursing school anyway. It was applying 60 miles away. It was deciding at 23 years old that a life built on someone else's terms isn't actually a life. You can spend a long time performing the version of yourself that keeps other people comfortable. I did. Then I stopped. The cabinet was open. I looked. That's where it started. That's where most things actually start. Not in dramatic confrontations, but in small, honest moments when you finally let yourself see what's right in front of you.